You're listening to Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. Small town feel with big time ideas. After all, you are entitled to Brad's opinion. Here's your host, Brad Allard.
Well, we're going to give it another shot today. Are we on the air today?
Yeah, we are good on Facebook.
Oh, good, because yesterday we tried to do this and Mark Zuckerberg shut me down, I think. But anyway, this is just kind of an extra show because I've had some guests, and that's a great thing. But I also want to kind of dive into this Kirk and Kimmel and Trump and all that. And, you know, a couple of people said, are you sure you want to do that? Because it's a controversial topic and all that other stuff. But, you know, I'm not that smart, so I'm going to go jump into it anyway. By the way, I'm not a particularly big fan of Mr. Trump. I think y'all know that by now. But did you see what happened? Josh, you see what happened to him at UN yesterday?
At the UN?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Up on that.
Well, as far as the speech goes, I'll briefly mention, but he was about to step on the elevator to go up to the assembly area. And just as he and the first lady were about to step on the elevator, it stops. All right. It's broken. Okay. The other elevators, it's escalator. That's what I meant to say. The escalator. Okay. So he and the first lady were walking towards the escalator, and it just stopped right as he was about to step on it. Okay. So they had to walk up the escalator. The other escalator, the down escalator, is fine. All right. So he gets up there to give his speech, and the teleprompter went out. And the sound system was going off and on. You think that was a coincidence? Okay. Like I said, I don't care for Mr. Trump that much, as for various reasons, but I think that was a great deal of disrespect to the president of our country. I don't buy for a minute that escalator just all of a sudden went out just as he was about to step on it, or the teleprompter went out just as he was about to speak. And he goes up there and rips him a new one, and it's, fine and dandy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think you and I know firsthand the issues of technical problems, and they always strike the most inopportune times.
Come on. All right.
Too many things happening at once is... Can't brush that off as a coincidence.
No, and he gets up there and tears them up about, how their country's going to hell, I think was one of the quotes. But anyway, like I said, I'm not a big fan, but I don't want our president to be mistreated or disrespected like that. That's I wouldn't want any president like that, even if, Mr. Biden or Mr. Obama in the same situation, whether we like him or not, he doesn't need to be disrespected by staff at the UN, which is what I think happened, frankly. But
100%.
But I don't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Today we're going to talk about what's going on. I don't know. We're going to talk about the Kimmel thing first, and then we'll talk about the funeral of Charlie Kirk and all this other business. This is not going to have the sponsors because, again, this is my opinion only, and I don't want them to have to answer for my opinion if they don't care to. I don't know what their opinion is on this issue. If you want to know, I'm sure they'll tell you, but I just think this is the kind of show I like to do solo. But the thing is about Mr. Kimmel is that what was probably starting off not to be a First Amendment issue became one when the government got involved. And that's going to be the thesis of my commentary about Mr. Kimmel. Had the government not stepped into it, then we'd be having a different conversation. But once Mr. Trump started making comments, or Brendan Carr, his FCC chair, started making comments, then it becomes different. Now, we have a brief video clip. This is from Monday night. We were going to do it yesterday, of course, but then the Facebook issues started. But this is from Monday night's NBC News, so if you would play that segment.
With Tom Yamas.
And good evening. It's been nearly a week since Jimmy Kimmel's show was suspended, but starting tomorrow, the late-night comedian will be on the air once again. Disney announcing Kimmel's return after what it calls thoughtful conversations, saying it pulled the show last week because of comments that were ill-timed and thus insensitive. ABC and Disney faced pressure from the FCC and major station groups after Kimmel made the comments in the wake of Charlie Kirk's killing. But the suspension was met with concerns about freedom of speech. In Hollywood, you see the list here, hundreds, including Meryl Streep and Jennifer Aniston, signed an open letter condemning the suspension. Kimmel himself has been silent so far, but what will he have to say when he comes back? Liz Kreutz starts us off tonight.
Tonight, after nearly a week of silence, Disney announcing Jimmy Kimmel will be back on the air Tuesday night. The company says the reversal comes after days of thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, adding Kimmel's show was suspended last week to avoid further inflaming a tense situation, calling his comments in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination ill-timed and thus insensitive.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from.
Disney and ABC pulled Kimmel off the air after pressure from the FCC chairman and two major television station ownership groups who said they'd stop airing the show following conservative outrage over Kimmel's comments. Sinclair, which owns dozens of ABC stations nationwide, previously said it would not air Jimmy Kimmel Live again unless the comedian apologized to the Kirk family and made a donation to them and Turning Point USA. Tonight, Sinclair saying they do not plan to run tomorrow's show, writing, "Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return."
Free speech is under attack!
The decision to put Kimmel back on the air comes as Disney faces mounting backlash, including protests and calls to boycott the company.
I'm canceling my Disney Plus.
Today, ABC's The View finally addressing the controversy.
The government cannot apply pressure to force someone to be silenced.
2 days after Kimmel was pulled off the air, police say 64-year-old Anibal Hernandez Santana fired shots into an ABC station in Sacramento. Tonight, the district attorney telling NBC News investigators found anti-Trump notes in his home and that they believe Kimmel's suspension may have been a factor.
We're still looking and investigating the case, but he chose a very particular target. And with the notes that he left behind, I think there's circumstantial evidence there to show that this was politically motivated crime by this individual.
Hernandez Santana, a retired state lobbyist, was first arrested by local police on Friday, but released on bail. The FBI then stepped in and rearrested him. His attorney says he plans to plead not guilty to the number of state and federal charges he now faces.
Liz joins us now live. Liz, the big question, do we know if Kimmel is going to apologize?
Tom, we don't know the answer to that, but we do know that Jimmy Kimmel does plan to address his suspension tomorrow night. The other big question is whether other local station groups like Nexstar will follow Sinclair's suit and not air the show. We have reached out to Nexstar for comment. So far, have not heard back. Tom.
All right, Liz Kreutz with that new reporting tonight. Liz,
Okay, a couple updates. One is Nexstar did pull the Kimmel show. The ABC affiliate here in Dallas is owned by a group called Tegna, so they were not they ran the show from what I understand, but because it's past my bedtime, I didn't stay up. But mostly the Nexstar owns Texas television stations like in Abilene and Lubbock and San Angelo, Midland, that area of the state. So most of your major markets ran the show here in Texas anyway. Second of all is, did Kimmel apologize or not? I'll get to that in a minute, but not really. But, here's the thing. This is my view. First of all, I don't find Mr. Kimmel funny at all. I never watch it. I've never watched it. I haven't watched much late-night television since Jay Leno left. As far as late-night comics like Stephen Colbert and others, it's like, why do I need to stay up late to be insulted? I mean, I do that during the regular hours of the day. I don't need to stay up late for that. And they made it pretty clear, both Kimmel and Colbert, definitely, and Seth Meyers later that night, that if you think or believe certain things, then you're really not welcome on this show. You're not welcome as an audience member. I don't understand personally why they would alienate half the audience. I mean, Carson and Leno would make political jokes, but they really weren't that mean-spirited. And no one took them really seriously, and they understood that conservatives want to watch late night as well. But it's like Colbert and Kimmel in particular; those two, or like I mentioned, Seth Meyers, is basically, we don't want you as an audience if you don't believe these things. Colbert had nothing but liberal politicians and celebrities as guests. Same with Kimmel. And when Jimmy Fallon had Donald Trump on, he took all sorts of crap about it. My point with it is that my response to Mr. Kimmel would be not to take him off the air, but just not to watch his show. All right, That's what my response to The View is. I think The View is one of the worst television shows on television. Would I want them taken off the air by the government? Absolutely not. Why people tune in to hear Whoopi Goldberg or Joe Behar give their political opinions is beyond me. But that's what they want to do with their viewing time. Get after it. All right. I'm not advocating they be silenced. The only way I can silence them out of my own life is not to watch them. And if enough people feel that way, then ABC will come to the same conclusion CBS did about Colbert and the late night show. That was seen as, I think it was portrayed as, the government putting pressure on it, and that CBS had certain deals pending with the FCC that they didn't want jeopardized, and Paramount and all this other business had some certain arrangements that they did not want to jeopardize, merger, I believe, and things of that nature. But the truth is that Colbert's show was losing $40 million a year, and the ratings were poor. And so they didn't pull him off the air. They just said, we're going to pull the show off the air in about 7 months from now, I believe. Back to Mr. Kimmel. I thought what he said about this kid that killed Charlie Kirk was totally out of mischaracterization. I'll put it that way. It's a total mischaracterization of what that kid was and what he believed. And I don't know how Kimmel could come to the conclusion that he was a right-wing MAGA type that would take out Charlie Kirk, of all people. And that not only was mistaken, but I thought he was kind of mean-spirited about it. And the idea that this kid was, targeted Charlie Kirk was a plan for MAGA, it's astounding. And the thing about it is, I know where he got that from. That wasn't just off the top of his head. The days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, there were Democrats in Congress, there were Democrat commentators like Lawrence Tribe and Heather Cox Richardson that were making the same claims without any evidence. And then the evidence comes out, obviously, that he had a great deal of anger towards Mr. Kirk because of his comments about transgenderism and things of that nature, and also the engravings on his bullet about being fascist and all this other stuff. And it's like, I don't know where they got it from. I know where he got it from. It's from them. And so he was mistaken, very much so, in how he was characterizing that kid. And I think he had to know it, or at least suspect it, but he wanted to make a political point. That being said, the Constitution doesn't penalize you for being wrong. It doesn't penalize you for being unfaithful to the facts, or whatever you want to say it. I'm not going to say Kimmel lied or anything like that, because I don't know the heart. But mistakes are not a punishable offense under the Constitution. Okay? Now, should ABC pull him off the air? That's for ABC to decide, but they needed to have made that decision without Brendan Carr, the FCC, stepping in it, or Trump stepping in it and making it a government issue. Had those two been uncharacteristically quiet and said nothing whatsoever, and the suspension resulted in all the same, or Sinclair and Nexstar pulled him all the same, that's a corporate decision. But when Brendan Carr gets in there and basically threatens ABC's license, and Mr. Trump backs that up, then it becomes a First Amendment issue. And I, like I said, I can't stand The View. I can't stand Jimmy Kimmel. Can't stand Stephen Colbert, and all that whole crew. But they don't have to be pulled off the air by the government. It's a financial decision. And if The View's ratings are good enough and the sponsors are satisfied, then my irritation with The View is immaterial. All right? I don't have to watch it. And if enough people don't watch it, then another decision will be made. But if enough people do watch it, then there you go. And I'll just have to live with the fact that The View exists in my life. I think I could do that. But the point is that if Trump and Brendan Carr had not said anything at all, would they have suspended him? I don't know. Would those affiliates have suspended him? Probably. But that's their decision to make. And the focus of everybody's anger about the suspension will be on ABC or Sinclair or Nexstar, not the government. And so that, people claim it's not a First Amendment issue. Trump and Brendan Carr made it one because they couldn't help themselves. Now, Apparently last night, Mr. Kimmel comes on and makes an explanation on it. And I will give him one piece of credit. I didn't see it. I just saw clips of it. I'll give him one credit is that he acknowledged the fact that some of the biggest critics of this whole thing were conservatives, like Ted Cruz. I mean, Ted Cruz, very controversial figure for a lot of people, but he made it very clear he thought this was totally wrong for the government to get involved. He called it a Goodfellas movie. That's a great movie. You ever see Goodfellas, Josh?
Ooh, that's one I haven't seen.
Oh,
but I know my dad likes it.
Oh, yeah. But basically, it's like you got a nice studio here or a nice network here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it, kind of thing. But no, so a lot of conservatives, and the three main conservative publications I subscribe to and read, Wall Street Journal, The Dispatch, National Review, all of them condemned this by Mr. Trump and the Brendan Carr. So some of the loudest critics of this were people that Jimmy Kimmel trashes a lot. And at least he acknowledged that he got conservative support. This was not strictly a liberal thing, so to speak. But the editorials and the articles in those three main conservative publications are very opposed to what Brendan Carr and Donald Trump did in this issue. And, as far as, I'm concerned, I could continue to go not watch Jimmy Kimmel. Now, I understand his ratings are poor. I understand that there's going to be a major contract renegotiation in about 6 months. And if they come to a conclusion that Jimmy Kimmel isn't worth the money, then that's going to be their decision. Now, there are also some other aspects of it. They said, well, the reason why ABC and the affiliates dropped him is because they have some pending business before the FCC. I've read a couple of reports about that, you might say. But the bottom line is this, the clearest expression of your First Amendment rights when it comes to these kind of issues is not to watch. And if you're really angry, boycott their sponsors. You say, wait, boycott? Well, that was the main weapon we used in the American Revolution. It's not buying British goods. If you don't, you're not obligated to buy the goods of any sponsor. So I'm just saying, if you don't like what Jimmy Kimmel said, and you're really angry, the answer is not taking him off the air. The answer is either you can rebut him in public time, kind of like I could do here, or in social media, which gets kind of hairy and trashy after a while. The other alternative is watch something else, go to bed. And I've gotten to the point now where basically the only television I watch is sports or documentaries because I don't like what's on television. I don't like all the streaming services. That's another entirely thing. You're shaking your head, Josh. It's too many streaming services, right?
Too many streaming services, too many subscriptions going on.
Yeah. If it's like if you want to watch these shows, you need about 6, and the shows look fine, but they get more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
And
you have series with like half a season on one streaming service and the other half on another, and you got to buy both to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I have a couple because the group situation, Netflix and Paramount, and we get Amazon Prime because we subscribe to that service because we do some business with Amazon occasionally. But all these other networks, it just overwhelming, But anyway, back to the original point. Original point I want to make is I don't like what Jimmy Kimmel said, but the answer is not to have the FCC put pressure on these kind of shows, okay? Because the point, some of the Republicans that supported this move, and there were, to be fair, there were many Republicans that did not, but for people that supported the government stepping in and doing this, remember, the other party is going to be in control one day, and do you want them to be knocking off, the 5 on Fox or Gutfeld or whatever else? You want a Democratic administration to be putting pressure on conservative-related shows, and that's what could happen very, very easily. This is a very dangerous path we're on if the government gets involved in dictating content or using its power for regulating the airwaves or approving mergers or whatever else to try to put people out of business. Is a very dangerous thing to do. Now, as far as the Charlie Kirk episode, to be frank, I barely knew who Charlie Kirk was. I mean, I'd heard of Turning Point, but he didn't speak to me. I'm way above the age level of most of his audience, which is, college age and a little above. And I asked a couple of people younger than I, who, you ever heard of this guy? And they did. And they had opinions. Oh, did they have opinions? And so I looked up to what he had to say. And some of it I thought was okay. Some of it I thought was a little bit extreme. All right. I'm not required to take Charlie Kirk's philosophy, so to speak, and accept it as a whole. I am allowed to pick and choose, as you are too. And I think, and that's there's a side note on that. I think that's what some of the problem is in our politics, is that politics should be more of a buffet than, and all you can, you got to take it as a whole, right? I don't have to agree with everything this particular politician says. I could support him on this and not on that. I don't have to agree with everything Charlie Kirk said, but I can also agree every now and then that he was right on certain issues. But in our society now, it's so all or nothing, so black and white, that if you either are on board 100% or off board 100%, and a lot of us in the middle are not 100% people, so to speak. That sounded odd. But we're not 100%ers. A lot of us, most people I know, from the moderate to liberal side to the conservative side, most of them, if you asked them what they thought about this, that, or the other issue, they'd have their own opinions. And sometimes those opinions don't line up with their political affiliations. I mean, I know Republicans that have very moderate views on X, Y, and Z, and Democrats the same. And so my point is that when I looked at Charlie Kirk, I said, yeah, I could see why people got really angry with him. I could see why the gay and lesbian community or the transgender community would be very upset by what he was saying. That being said, it doesn't justify his murder. Okay? Again, I want to rephrase that just to make sure I'm clear on that. I understand better now than I did a few years ago why those kind of comments of Charlie Kirk's, whether you think they're right or whether you think they're wrong, it doesn't matter. It's up to you. In other words, I'm not going to tell you what to think on that. But I could see why some of his comments were very angering to certain groups. And that does not require him to be silenced like he was. You could be as angry as you want with Charlie Kirk, and it's your full right to do so, and you could think he's all these things. But murdering him was not the answer. And that's what it was a murder. And so the people that are celebrating his death, I got to wonder about him a little bit. I mean, that's cruel. It's not just the fact he left a widow and 2 children behind, but the assassination of any person should be seen as wrong. And the people want to make this as like a left-wing violence thing. Well, okay, let's also temper that with the fact that about 2 months ago, a Minnesota legislature, the Democratic House Speaker, or former House Speaker, and her husband were killed by some right-wing kook. And another legislator and his wife were wounded by him. So there's no exclusive ownership of fanaticism on one side of this conversation. There's left-wing and right-wing violence, unfortunately. And we've gone through this before. In the late 60s and early 70s, there were assassinations and bombings and terrorist activities all throughout the country. I don't think a lot of people realize just how often bombs went off in our country the first half of the 70s. There were minor in most cases, but there were groups like the Weathermen and others that were setting off bombs all the time. And as far as left-wing and right-wing assassinations, that were going on then too. And it was a dangerous, dangerous time. But my point also is that you don't have to like what Charlie Kirk says. You could hate it with every fiber of your being, but that doesn't justify his death, and it's no cause for celebration. Okay? There are people in public life that I absolutely despise. I do not want their death. I do not want them to be assaulted or hassled even. Just let them alone. Just go away. All right? In fact, in the next clip, you're going to see a politician that I think is probably one of the most disreputable, unscrupulous people ever to sit in a Senate seat. And I do not want him to have any kind of physical harm come to him, because that's not how we handle our business. That is not how we do things here in this country. So why don't you run that Kirk episode from the news?
President Trump tonight also calling for his attorney general to investigate some of his political opponents. It comes after he joined tens of thousands at that emotional service for Charlie Kirk. Here's Garrett.
President Trump with another push for Attorney General Pam Bondi.
I just want people to act.
After his controversial post urging her to prosecute 3 of his political foes. The president Saturday night posting about former FBI Director James Comey, Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, and New York's Democratic Attorney General Letitia James, writing, "They impeached me twice and indicted me 5 times over nothing. Justice must be served now."
Nixon had his enemies list, but it wasn't so exhaustive and blatant as this.
But the White House tonight insisting the president is not weaponizing the DOJ.
He wants accountability for these corrupt fraudsters who abused their power.
It comes after tens of thousands packed the memorial service for conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
The gun was pointed at him, but the bullet was aimed at all of us.
With the president embracing Kirk's widow, Erica.
After Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival.
In one of the most poignant moments of the night, just 11 days after her husband's murder, Erica Kirk forgiving her husband's alleged assassin.
I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do.
It was a sentiment the president did not echo as he celebrated Charlie Kirk.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica.
All right, Garrett joins us now in studio. So, Garrett, we saw it there. The president has ordered the AG on social media to go after his political foes. Is she actually doing it?
It's hard to know for sure, but just this afternoon, the Attorney General appears to have followed another order from the same social media post and sworn in a new interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. That's where the Letitia James inquiry had been based, so we'll be watching to see if it ramps back up, Tom.
All right, Garrett, great to see you in New York. New report involving President Trump's borders.
All right. I thought Erica Kirk was a great example of Christian forgiveness. And then, of course, on Facebook, or not Facebook, or social media, they criticized it. But that's just social media. I think she did a great thing. I think she exemplified Christian forgiveness. And I don't know if I could do the same if something had happened to my spouse. But she did. And then Trump stepped all over it. And that's what gets to me. Why can he not ruin it? But he stepped all over it. I put up that screen grab I did on the New York Times from yesterday, or it's from Monday, actually. All right, I hate my opponent. Not only is that not a Christian value, it's not a good American value, okay? And we don't need the President of the United States acting out his personal revenges using government agencies like the DOJ. And anybody that says otherwise is not following the facts or being truthful with the facts. He absolutely is. Now, in that last clip, there was a brief clip from Adam Schiff. He was the guy I was referring to earlier. I think he's one of the most unscrupulous men ever to sit in the U.S. Congress. And he was the one that basically spearheaded the first impeachment of Mr. Trump. And he did so with very unscrupulous methods, I think. And he was constantly leaking to MSNBC. And a lot of the leaks were lies that he knew to be lies. Okay? Should he be punished? Well, the Senate can do it. But the voters of California didn't punish him for it, certainly. And to have Trump use the government to go after Adam Schiff is not what we want from our president, because, first of all, this has nothing to do with the American people. It has everything to do with him. And that's not what the government's there for. This is not his Department of Justice. It's ours. It's not his military. It's ours. Okay? And so for him to use the government agencies like that for his personal revenge motives is highly, highly inappropriate. as far as Letitia James, she is the Attorney General from New York that did all those lawsuits about mortgage fraud and whatever else. And they have investigated her and all this other business. I thought she acted unscrupulously. But then again, it's not, let me put it this way. If she violated the law, the state of New York is the one that's supposed to be investigating her, not the Department of Justice so much. Now, a lot of people say these people did Donald Trump wrong. I believe the first impeachment was pretty bogus. The second one, I think, was pretty appropriate. But the point I'm making is that whatever legitimacy that Donald Trump feels about sending the DOJ out to go get these people, it's and not just a violation, I think, of his oath of office, but it is a waste of time, resources, and it's just weaponizing the DOJ. And people say, well, what about Biden? Didn't he do the same thing? Yes, he did. Not to his credit. But when are we going to quit getting into this mindset that because they did it, we can do it plus 10? Because what's going to happen, guys, is that when the Democrats come back into office, they're going to reciprocate plus 10. And the divisions and the animosities will just continue to grow until we had a real serious Civil War level crisis. That's my point on it. Okay? Trump should learn from Kirk. If he feels like he was wronged by Letitia James and Adam Schiff and all these other people, and like the prosecutor down in Georgia about that fraud or voter fraud case, okay, he could feel whatever he wants, but he doesn't have to use our Department of Justice for that. Somewhere, somebody is going to have to stop this cycle. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, because what's going to happen, let's say the Democrats elect in 2028, and he or she runs on a real, genuine reconciliation message. What's going to happen, as soon as that Democrat gets into office, the far left groups are going to push that president like they did Biden. Biden was not a particularly hard left liberal until he got into office. You know, he spent his whole Senate career as a moderate liberal Democrat. And then he gets in office and becomes very left-wing because that's what the pressure groups are demanding of him. And that's what's going to happen until we finally break this cycle that the fringes are going to be dictating the terms. That's what really angers me. Is when are we going to get to the point where the fringe groups on the other side of the spectrum, when are they going to get to the point that they're not driving the bus? When are we going to get to the point that they're not the ones that are dictating the conversation and the climate of our country? When are we going to get to the point where that far left, far right are going to be finally ignored to the point and done and put away with? And I don't mean by physically putting away, so let's not go there. I'm just put, you just basically ignoring them and push them aside politically to kind of recapture the moderate middle. Because it just keeps escalating. And the president we have right now, Mr. Trump, is a prime accelerant of that. And we just saw it. Okay? We just saw it. He had every opportunity on that funeral Sunday afternoon. He could have gotten up there and said, Erica, you're right. We need to stop. We need to, reevaluate, come together, on and on and on. Instead, he says, I hate my opponents, and he has his DOJ going after him. I could tell you right now that the fears that the left fears about Donald Trump, the fears they feel, are legitimate. For those of us that are not in that category, we need to recognize that fact. When they hear Donald Trump talking like this, it scares them. And it angers them. We need a president that's going to be more conciliatory than he is. And I'm really angry with Mr. Trump for having a perfect opportunity, and he blew it because he had to make it about him. He has to make everything about him. There's no policy, there's no relationship in foreign powers, there's nothing that he doesn't personalize and make it about him. he thinks he can stop a war because he and Putin are buddies. I think he's learning the hard way that's not true. He thinks that these tariffs are going to work because it's all about him, and what's happening with us on that score is not really registering with him. But I'm just going to sum this up this way. Donald Trump, is making the situation worse when we need a president to make it better. And people who say, well, what about Biden? What about Obama? What about? We can have a whole debate on that. And I could think of examples where Mr. Biden, I thought, was overly aggressive towards conservatives and conservative groups. And his implementation of DEI mandates are an example of that. And some of his executive orders dealing with, gender issues, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's another debate. And it doesn't really matter now because this is the president we got. And we need Mr. Trump to do something that's totally uncharacteristic to him, and that is not make it about himself, but about the American people, period. So I'm going to sum it up. If you're mad about Charlie Kirk's position's fine. I could see why. If you're mad about his death, good, you should be, because that was a terrible, terrible thing that happened. And if you celebrate that death, you need to reevaluate your compassion, because again, I don't want to have anything happen to my political opponents, so to speak, or people I don't like politically. Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, I think, are nitwits, but God help us if they get assassinated, because that would just fuel it even further. So I hope and pray for their protection. And I don't want them hassled at restaurants. I don't want them hassled on the streets like happens to some conservatives in D.C. Just leave them alone. Don't watch it. If Kimmel gets the ratings, they need to stay on the air, have at it. But we need for our president to quit putting gasoline on the fire. And that's all I have to say about that. You like that?
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, then good. Yeah, he's shaking his head, saying, all right.
Very succinct.
I hope so. I hope I made myself clear.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I don't know. I've been bothered by this. You've been bothered by this. Everybody is bothered by it. I talked to several people today and yesterday, and they're like, they're just bewildered and dazed by all this, because it never stops. And you got these people online that have nothing better to do than to keep accelerating the problem. So, all right. So, we got potential spam to call during. Maybe that was somebody else. Maybe it was Donald Trump saying, no.
No, it's Disney coming to take us off the air.
Wouldn't doubt it.
Sorry, too soon.
All right. So Monday, I don't have a show Monday, actually. I'm going to tell you your schedule. I haven't told you the schedule. Monday we're free because I've got a couple shows on Thursday. So let's look get the right month, dummy. All right, here it is. On next Tuesday, I'm going to have the Opportunity Fund again because they have the big breakfast coming up. And then on Thursday, I got a doubleheader. Sarah Brown Roberts, I keep calling her by her maiden name. She's going to come on and talk about her new gig with the security company she's with, and what not only just what they can do, but what the needs of security are. And also that afternoon, we're going to have the Joshua ISD superintendent. So that's going to be a pretty good show. So you got the Monday off there, Josh.
Hey, sweet.
And sleep late or whatever. Thank you for indulging me. I hope you understood where I was coming from. You can share this with your friends if you think it's worth it. And we will see you next Tuesday.